Humans only dodge rocks because their minds are too slow to think. Laughter that filled the training hall of the Valari Combat Academy was sharp and metallic, echoing off crystalline walls. The instructor, a towering Valari warrior, with a crest of glowing blue scales, swept his six-jointed arms through the air as though shooing away an insect. His name was Instructor Drexel, known across the Academy's many worlds for humiliating fresh recruits. His favored target this week, however, was the lone human cadet, a girl named Riley Carter. Riley stood at the edge of the sparring mat, her hands resting loosely at her sides. She was shorter than every alien in the room by 2 heads at least. Her frame was lean, her academy uniform slightly oversized, making her look like she didn't quite belong. The alien cadets whispered and grinned among themselves, eager to see her shamed. She had only been there 2 weeks, yet she had already become the butt of endless jokes. Humans were new to the Interstellar Alliance, and most of the Academy still doubted them. Instructor Drexel clicked his mandibles and circled her like a predator sizing up. Reflexes decide combat. Speed decides survival. Your kind evolved to chase animals through mud. Here we fight wars across suns. Riley stayed silent. She tilted her head slightly, brown hair slipping into her eyes as she observed. He mistook her quiet for fear and turned to the class. Watch closely, cadets. The human reflex is clumsy too basic. I will prove it. He lunged without warning, arms whipping out in a blur. Silver practice staff sliced toward Riley's head, quick enough to make the other cadets recoil. But Riley leaned an inch left, and the staff cut the air, missing even a strand of hair. Aliens. Drexel froze, adjusted, and struck again with a downward slash aimed at her shoulder. Riley stepped back so fluid and exact that she seemed to drift in slow motion beside his furious speed. The staff slammed into the mat, sending sparks flying. His crest rippled with embarrassment as cadets laughed, though some went silent when his glare swept over them. Coincidence, he barked. Beginner's luck. Watch carefully, cadets. He unleashed a flurry of blows, each faster than the last. Riley slipped away from all of them, swaying as if to music. Only she heard a strike at her ribs, missed by a hair's width. A thrust at her throat was dodged so gently her boots never scuffed the mat. The harder he pressed, the calmer she became, eyes fixed on his shoulders, reading his moves. Before they finished, how he snapped, cutting himself off to sweep at her legs. Riley hopped lightly, landing soundless, hands still down. Jian, are you done? She asked flatly. The cadets exploded with noise. Some laughed, others shouted trickery. Drexel's scales pulsed crimson, the Valari sign of rage. He was one of the Academy's fastest duelists, renowned for precision. To be mocked by a human before Hyan cadets was unbearable. Again, he snarled, stabbing with all 6 arms in a storm of attacks. Riley slid between them, dipping a shoulder here, tilting her head there. Her movements were uncanny. She never seemed rushed, her breathing steady as stone. Whispers spread in the crowd, edging toward awe. A reptilian cadet muttered, "She sees it before it comes." A feathered Farlery squawked back, "No, she reacts after." But Fester, it's impossible. Riley smirked at the chatter. She said between dodges. Back on Earth we play a game called dodgeball. Kids throw balls at each other for fun, and we spend years learning to slip away at the last second. Maybe it stayed with me. Ducked a strike that sang past her ear. Or maybe humans just turned survival into games. Drexel finally staggered to a halt, panting in fury, his crest sagging with exhaustion. Riley hadn't even broken sweat. Silence spread through the hall, cadets staring with new eyes. No one had expected this. Riley straightened and finally lifted her hands, not to fight, but to clap twice, mocking lightly. Wanted to demonstrate human reflexes, she said softly. I think the lesson is clear. The hall roared with voices again. Cadets grinned, others were stunned. The tone had shifted. Where ridicule once lurked, there was now curiosity, even respect. A few regarded her as some rare creature they had misjudged. Riley met their eyes one by one, smiling. She knew this was just the start of what she had prove. Instructor Drexel's mandibles clicked in agitation as he fought to regain his composure. But the damage was already done. The cadets no longer looked at him with reverence. Their gazes had shifted to Riley, wide with fascination. Stood calmly at the center of the mat, rocking on her heels as if the duel had been nothing more than a warm-up. When she first arrived, she had hoped to remain unnoticed. Now that was no longer possible. That evening the hall buzzed with energy. Groups of cadets clustered together, dissecting every moment. Some insisted she must have used hidden human technology. Others whispered about strange inner senses her species kept secret. A few simply stared, their skepticism giving way to reluctant respect. Riley sat cross-legged in the corner, sipping from her flask, letting their theories swirl. She knew better than to boast. Tension could sour quickly, and the academy was already unfriendly to humans. But rumors spread faster than she could contain. The next morning in the mess hall, trays clattered as cadets leaned over to stare at her. Scarn, a Farlery cadet with bright red feathers, stepped forward. You saw his strikes before they landed, he chirped. How? Valerie reflexes are measured in fractions beyond human reach. Riley shrugged. I don't know about fractions. I just read where the motion begins. Shoulders, hips, weight shifts. Nerth. Athletes do it without thinking. Scarn's eyes narrowed. Athletes? You mean games? Riley grinned. Yeah, games. Dodging for fun. You'd be surprised how fast it makes you. Her answer only stoked curiosity. Within days, cadets began gathering at practice to watch her. Some challenged her outright, eager to test the so-called human reflex. Riley accepted every bout. Time she slipped past strikes with ease. Opponents grew bitter, others laughed in shock, but her reputation climbed higher. Drexel, humiliated, grew obsessed with crushing her. He loaded her with harsher trials, far beyond those given to others. Instead of breaking the tests, refined. One afternoon he set her against 2 cadets at once. Riley dodged every blow, maneuvering them into colliding on mat. Cheers erupted from the crowd. Another time, a swarm of drone spheres fired, tracking pulses faster than most species could process. Riley weaved through the storm like raindrops falling round her. Not a single pulse struck. When the drones powered down, silence held for a beat before the hall roared. She wasn't surviving anymore, she was thriving. But thriving drew danger. One evening, as she walked through glowing, glyph-lined halls, a group of cadets cut her path. Their expressions weren't friendly. For a hulking Thrix cadet leaned close until his forked tongue flicked the air. You make us look weak, he hissed. This academy is for warriors, not human tricks. Riley wanted to laugh, but instead met his gaze calmly. Maybe you should focus on improving yourself instead of blaming me. Hor's eyes narrowed, ready to strike, but Scarn stepped forward, wings flaring slightly. "Back off, Vor," he said. "If she makes you look weak, that's your problem." Or growled but finally pulled away, muttering darkly as he left with his group. Riley nodded her thanks. That encounter proved what she already suspected. She was no longer entertainment. She was changing how cadets thought about humans. Drixall sensed it too, which was why his next move stunned everyone. At the start of the week, he summoned the entire class to the grand arena. The crystalline dome above shimmered with starlight, a murmur rippling through the gathered cadets. Riley stepped into the center, her eyes narrowing as Drexel announced the trial. "One cadet against a champion drone," he declared, gesturing to the far end of the arena. A massive automaton rose from beneath the floor, its armored plates pulsing with orange circuits. "This machine reacts faster than any living being," Drixall announced. "It is built to challenge even Valari duelists. Today, a human will face it." A ripple of gasps swept the cadets. Riley rolled her shoulders and breathed out slowly. Could feel their eyes waiting for her to fill. Drixall's mandibles twitched with satisfaction, but Riley only tightened her gloves and stepped forward. "All right," she whispered to herself. "Let's see what you've got." The drone's sensors blazed to life. With a deep hum that shook the arena floor, it launched into motion. The crowd went silent, holding its breath. Riley braced, eyes locked on its frame, muscles coiled for clash. The drone circled like a predator, orange optics flickering as it calculated strike patterns. Then in a blur it lunged. One arm shot forward with crushing speed. Riley slid her foot an inch, tilted her head, and the strike missed her by the width of a finger. Gas erupted. The drone swung again, hammering toward her torso. Riley spun aside, her boots barely whispering on the floor. It wasn't just dodging now, she was moving. Like the fight had rhythm only she could hear. Blow after blow cracked the air. But Riley slipped through them, bending, ducking, leaping at the very last second. Cadets stared, transfixed. Even Drixall leaned forward, crest rigid. Riley's gaze never left the machines. She wasn't tracking arms anymore. She was reading the tilt of its chassis, the faint grind of its gyros. She moved the instant its algorithms chose a path, mirroring decision with decision. Wet beaded her brow, but her grin widened. "You're fast," she breathed. "But predictable." The drone adapted, hidden appendages snapping open, sparking rods, doubling its attack speed. Cadets shouted warnings, certain she was finished. Riley arched backward under a strike, twisted sideways from another, then rolled beneath the storm, popping back to her feet with playful ease. The audience could barely comprehend what they were seeing. Finally, the drone committed to an overhead smash meant to end it all. It raised a massive arm and slammed down with thunderous force. Riley waited, motionless, then stepped aside at the perfect instant. The strike shook the arena, sparks and dust filling the dome. When it cleared, Riley was standing at its flank, hand resting lightly on its armor like calming a beast. The drone hesitated, algorithm stuttering. It moved behind it and shoved precisely at a weak joint. The automaton toppled, processors scrambling to compensate. Crashed to one knee, beaten not by power, but by timing. The arena exploded with sound, cheers, shrieks, applause rattling. The crystalline dome. Cadets of every species clapped hands, wings, claws, shouting Riley's name. Even her loudest mockers stared at her in awe. Riley brushed dust from her sleeve, bowed Lightly, cheeks flushed but smile wide. Drixall strode forward, mandibles clattering as he searched for words. Pride warred with the truth he had just seen. At last, with a sharp breath he lifted one claw toward Riley. "Cadets!" he called, voice echoing. "Observe well. Today the human has achieved what many claimed impossible. Reflexes are not just speed. They are perception, instinct. She has shown all three." Riley blinked, surprised. She had expected mockery, but the instructor inclined his crest in respect. For the first time, Drixall wasn't belittling her. He was acknowledging the truth before them all. From that moment, Riley was no longer the outsider. She became the cadet others watched, the one they whispered about, admired, envied. Some asked her to teach. She shared tips, stories of Earth's games. Children dodging rubber balls, athletes leaping hurdles. To aliens such things sounded strange, yet when they tried, their reflexes sharpened in ways their drills never had. The academy had always worshipped speed and force, but Riley revealed another path. Adaptability, creativity, the human instinct to turn survival into play. Months later, during the Grand Assembly, cadets stood to be honored. When Riley's name was called, applause thundered. She glimpsed Scarn's bright approving nod, even Vor's grudging smile. Then her gaze met Drixall's. He didn't grin, but his mandibles clicked in, a subtle sign of recognition. It was enough. Riley exhaled, feeling both the weight of her journey and the promise of challenges still ahead. She had not only survived the academy, she had reshaped it, proving that humans, underestimated as they were, had something extraordinary to offer. For the first time since leaving Earth, she knew she truly belonged.